Okay, well, I promised for the last time. Welcome and thank you for joining GSA's public meeting for the Chet Holifield Federal Building Final Environmental Impact Statement public meeting. The meeting is beginning now. Your audio will be muted for the duration of the call until the public commenting portion, where you have a chance to provide comment. Instructions for joining the audio are on the provided screen. If you're having any trouble, please contact Zoom support at the link provided. Also, please note this meeting will be recorded for documentation purposes and uploaded to the project website for anyone who was unable to attend. Sorry about that. You may hear my dog barking in the background over the course of the meeting, and I apologize for that. So just to give you a heads up as to how this meeting will go, I will give you a short review of the National Environmental Policy Act, its requirements, and the EIS process that we are currently in. We'll then go over the timeline. We will have a quick review of the project. There's a few changes from the draft EIS that I think are important to highlight. And then we will go into the next steps, followed by the public comment session. So the purpose of this meeting is not only to provide an overview of GSA's project, discuss the findings of the final EIS and the differences between the final and the draft EIS, but also to give you, the public, an opportunity to provide comments on this final EIS and inform you of the next steps in the EIS and planning process. For those of you who might be unfamiliar, NEPA stands for the National Environmental Policy Act, and it requires that federal agencies consider the potential impact, to the human and natural environment of any major proposed federal actions. As I mentioned, this is the meeting, and we have prepared a final EIS under NEPA, and EIS stands for Environmental Impact Statement, to document potential impacts from the implementation of our proposed action at the Chet Holifield Federal Building. NEPA provides the public with opportunities to comment on the findings of this EIS. There was an initial scoping meeting where we accepted comments from the public. There was then a draft that also had a public comment period where the public was invited to comment. And then you are also invited to comment on this final EIS. And I apologize, but I feel that I have made an error in my presentation. Luckily, I did not have to do this all by myself, so I'd like to introduce my esteemed team. Jane Lehman, would you mind introducing yourself?
No, hi, my name is Jane Lehman. I am the Regional Historic Preservation Officer for GSA in Region 9. I'm based out of San Francisco, and I handle most of the historic preservation issues on this project, and I'm running the Section 106 historic consultation under the National Historic Preservation Act.
Thanks. And next, Paul, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name's Paul DiPaolo, and I am the contractor supporting Rosewan and GSA in the preparation of the EIS.
Thank you, Paul. Jared, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. Jared Trout. I'm the Senior Asset Manager for the Chet Holifield Building in the GSA's Portfolio Management Division.
Thank you, Jared. Twee, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, my name is Twee Ta. I'm the Brand Chief for the Real Property Organization and Disposal Division, and we are supporting the disposal process for the building.
Thank you, Tui. And Serene, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Hi, Serene Wetzel. I'm the branch chief in the Portfolio Management Division overseeing the Chet Holifield Federal Building.
Thank you, Serene. And again, I apologize. I meant to do that at the beginning of the meeting, and I just got too excited. We will go back to the presentation. NEPA provides the public with opportunities to comment on the findings of the EIS. Like I mentioned, there have been a couple opportunities for the public to do just that, and we are currently in the public comment period for the final EIS, which will end on April 7th. GSA will review all the comments and consider substantive comments prior to issuing a record of decision, which will indicate the undertaking, any additional studies, or abandonment of the project. To give you an idea of how this process works, the project timeline, the notice of intent was published in the Federal Register, and then which was followed by the public scoping comment period in the fall of 2019. That included a public scoping meeting on October 2nd of 2019. We then developed the draft EIS, which was followed by the draft EIS comment period, which ran from July 8th to September 4th of 2020, and was accompanied by a virtual public meeting on August 4th. After comments were considered and some changes were made, the final EIS was developed, and we are now in the final EIS comment period, which runs from March 8th to, April 12th. You will see April 7th on a couple of documents, but due to some submission issues and timing, we have decided to extend the comment period until April 12th. I apologize as I misspoke earlier. As you all are aware, this is the public meeting, again, virtual public meeting for the final EIS, which will be followed by the record of decision, as I discussed. To give you a little bit of background on the project, the Chet Holifield Federal Building was built in 1970 by the Aerospace and Systems Group of North America, Rockwell Corporation. It was never occupied by its intended tenants and was transferred to the federal government in 1974. The Chet Holifield Federal Building is owned and managed by GSA and includes 12 different federal agency tenants, about 3,000 workers, with the USCIS being the largest tenant and comprising about 2/3 of those workers. The building is about 1 million square feet and is located on an 86.5 acre parcel. There is a separate 5.5 acre parcel which contains utility equipment and is located across the street just north of Avila Road. GSA is considering alternatives to relocate tenants off-site and dispose of the Chet Holifield Federal Building. If you are unfamiliar with the site or the location, here it is. It is in Laguna Niguel, which is located in between Los Angeles and San Diego, and about 4 miles from the Pacific coastline and the town of Laguna Beach. It is in a suburban area, mostly comprised of retail and residential zones. This is the existing Chet Holifield Federal Building site. You see the building in the middle, as well as the cooling tower and utility parcel across the street. The current parcel is also comprised of a good deal of parking which surrounds the building. So heading out of background and into the current project. The purpose and need for the project is to accommodate the long-term office space requirements for the current tenants located at the Chet Holifield Federal Building that would meet applicable building accessibility and security standards. Also, to this possible disposal of the Chet Holifield Federal Building property. The need is that the current working space does not meet GSA's building accessibility and security standards. It's also needed to address the PBRB recommendations to dispose of the site. The project alternatives, which are considered in the final EIS, are 2 action alternatives, and the no action alternative, which is used to baseline the impact from the action alternatives. Alternative 1 would include construction of a new federal building for the USCIS only, which would be located on the existing parcel and directly adjacent to the current Chet Holifield Federal Building. Relocation of the remaining tenants outside of USCIS would occur in lease space, primarily within Orange County. The existing building and the remainder of the property, which would not be retained for the new construction, would be disposed of. Action 2, which has been identified in the final EIS as the preferred alternative, would include relocation of all of the tenants. Again, that's about 3,000 workers, primarily within Orange County, similar to under Alternative 1. It would also include a new lease location for USCIS outside of the existing Chet Holifield Federal Building property, and the entire property, including the Chet Holifield Federal Building and the surrounding government property, would be disposed of. Again, under this, no new construction would occur. The no action would be just that. We would not take any action. All the tenants would remain within the existing Chet Holifield Federal Building. No new construction or relocation would occur, and minor repairs may occur as needed, along with maintenance and operation of the existing facilities. Alternative 1, which is the concept site layout. You can see the area that would be retained for the building and parking, and the area that would be disposed of is outlined in red. So although it says it on the picture, on the image, I would like to emphasize that this was a conceptual rendering and is in no way an approved design, but just to give you an idea of what something might look like on that site. Future development of the Chet Holifield Federal Building site. I think it's important to note that any future development of the Chet Holifield Federal Building site following the proposed disposal is not part of GSA's proposed action, nor would it be within the control of GSA. I think it's also important to note that any future development would likely be subject to either further NEPA analysis or CEQA analysis if it were to go to a state or private entity. Kind of following on to that, there are 2 likely outcomes of the disposal of the property. The property could remain in federal ownership by another federal entity, or the property would be transferred out of federal ownership, like I said, to either a state, private, or possibly local entity. Under either of these scenarios, the public would likely have additional opportunities to provide public comment on future use of the site once the development plans have been proposed. As I mentioned, if it is a future federal owner, additional NEPA analysis would most likely be required. And if it is a non-federal owner, the appropriate level of analysis under CEQA would most likely or may be required, along with all necessary land use approvals for any proposed future use of the site. This EIS considers impacts generally from the future development of the site, as no plans currently exist for development and a future landowner is not and will not be known. Potential future development of the site and compliance with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations would be the sole responsibility of the future landowner and not GSA. Please refer to the EIS for discussion of potential impacts from future development. And again, those are general because we don't know who will purchase the site yet or could purchase the site yet. There were 4 alternatives considered but dismissed because they did not meet the purpose and needs for the proposed action. One was repair and alterations of the Chet Holifield Federal Building, another being new construction for all tenants. And you are welcome to refer to the EIS for that information. The EIS findings are outlined here, but I would encourage you to take a look at the EIS, which I think is the best place to answer any of your questions. There are some impacts that I think are laid out very well in the EIS, and will provide a very full picture of those impacts and any potential impacts. So the summary of findings in the EIS, again, an alternative 1 would include construction by GSA, which could have minor construction impacts like soils, water resources, biological resources, and possibly noise. These impacts would be temporary. There's also some traffic, possible air emissions, which could affect nearby land uses and possibly residences in the short term. Alternative 2 would not include construction and so would not affect the natural environment or nearby land uses or residences. There could be moderate to significant economic impacts from the relocation of workers outside of Laguna Niguel. Although under both alternatives, the tenant's place of work is expected to remain primarily in Orange County, and workers are not expected to relocate their place of residence, or at least most of them. Future development of the Chet Holifield Federal Building site would likely offset local job losses in Laguna Niguel in the long term. With any major change, workers may need to change commuting patterns under both alternatives, which could lead to either an increase or decrease in travel time, which leads to air emissions, depending on the final lease locations and worker residences. No net new trips are expected from GSA's action. As I know, it is a source of questions and comments. I thought I should go over the cultural resources and section 106 consultation. But please hold your comments to the end. And Jane Lehman should be able to answer any questions regarding the cultural resources section 106 as it relates to the NEPA process. Just for a quick overview, if anybody is not familiar with this process, the section 106 of the NHPA, the National Historic Preservation Act, requires GSA to evaluate potential effects on properties listed or eligible, like in this case, for listing in the National Register of Historic Places prior to an undertaking, like disposing of the Chet Holifield Federal Building site or new construction. The Chet Holifield Federal Building was determined eligible for the National Register of Historic Places due to the rarity of its architectural style and its association with master architect Mr. William Pereira. Under alternative 1, there'd be some adverse effects under NHPA from partial demolition of the landscaping and site plan. Again, alternative 1 is, or I should say, contemplates partial disposal of the site along with construction of a new federal building. There are also visual impacts related to the loss of views to and from the historic property. Under both alternatives 1 and 2, potential disposal of the historic property out of federal ownership would constitute no adverse effect when done with restrictions to ensure long-term preservation. The Section 106 process is currently underway to determine effects to the property under NHPA. This is just a nice picture of the Chet Holifield Federal Building and surrounding area to give anybody unfamiliar with the building an idea of what it looks like. This is more of the same. This is entering the site on the left and a nice view of the building on the right. As I mentioned, there are a few changes made from the draft EIS to the final. I think the main change being the identification of alternative 2 as a preferred alternative. Clarification that disposal is included as part of GSA's proposed action. Clarification of GSA's role, or possibly more accurately, lack thereof in future development. Clarifications on the role of the Section 106 process and potential mitigations. Additional details provided regarding existing asbestos in the building, which is still monitored and continues to indicate the building is safe to occupy. And then responses to all formal comments are provided in Appendix G of the final environmental impact statement. Current status and next steps. A notice of availability was published in the Federal Register on March 8th to start the public comment period for the final EIS. The public comment for the final EIS ends on April 12th, 2021. GSA may prepare and sign a record of decision, commonly known as a ROD, which will provide project approval and would announce the availability of that ROD will be published in the Federal Register. GSA could also abandon the project fully or choose to undertake additional studies. Project updates are available at the project website, and the link for that is provided here. During the public comment period, up until April 12th, written comments can be submitted by two means, the two means below, excuse me, until the end of the comment period. You can email me directly. You can call me with questions or to request additional information, such as the link I can email you. Or if you prefer to, by mail, just please make sure they're postmarked by April 12th to the address provided here. Written and verbal comments may be provided tonight, and we will get to that section momentarily, or that portion of the meeting momentarily. By momentarily, I meant right now. So now we are getting into the commenting session of the public meeting. If you would like to provide a comment or have a quick question for us, which I may refer to a more formal comment, but you're welcome to ask. Please click the raise hand icon on the bottom of the screen. For those accessing audio only, please dial *9. You will be unmuted by the host, and please start by stating your name, affiliation, and city of residence for the record. If you would like to submit a written comment or question, you can click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and type your comment or question and click send. We do ask that you limit verbal comments to no more than 3 minutes so that everybody has a chance to speak. A reminder will be provided to you at about 2.5 minutes, and commenters will be muted if they continue to speak past their allotted limit. I apologize for that, but I do want to get to everybody. If you wish to provide detailed comments, please summarize your views within the allotted time, and then I would welcome you to submit additional comments in writing after the meeting. If calling in by phone, please avoid using speakerphone to ensure the best audio performance as this is being recorded. I don't think this will come into play, but I do have to say that use of crass or vulgar language during verbal commenting or through the Q&A window will not be tolerated and will result in removal from the meeting. I will leave these up so you have them to refer to, and I would like to open the comment period, or the comment session, excuse me. Thank you.
Looks like we have our first comment in the Q&A window, Osman. Question is, how long will it take for other federal agencies to decide if they want part or all of the site?
Well, so the disposal will go through a process, and then any federal agencies will have a chance to request part or all of the site. But I would like to refer to my colleague Thuy Ta to explain a little bit about the disposal process, because I know that is something that is of interest. Thuy?
Yes, hi. To answer the question, the property is being disposed under the FASTA Authority Act, which means that it's going to be directly come out to the public sale. If you're with a federal agency that's interested in looking at a site or looking to relocate to specific locations, please feel free to reach out to our disposal team. Maybe we can connect you with our leasing team, or to find a property or site for you if there's a need for the property. But in this case, the property being disposed is going to be going out to the public sale directly.
Thanks, Thuy and Matt. And it looks like we have another question from Matt. That is, what is the status of the Section 106 process? Specifically, what is the status of the historic preservation analysis and whether the building may be landmarked with preservation required? And to answer that, I would invite Jane Lehman. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, this is Jane Lehman. We are in the middle of the Section 106 process. It has been GSA's determination that the undertaking, which is disposal of the property, will have no adverse effect on the historic property if we put into place adequate and legally enforceable restrictions for the preservation in the future. So that's the intent that GSA is moving forward with. We've had 2 consultation meetings so far. We are in the process of drafting those covenants that will be inserted into the deed of transfer or as an easement with a private nonprofit organization. So we will continue the consultation until we have agreed on, with all the consulting parties, until we have agreed on the covenants.
Okay, thank you, Jane. And thank you, Matt, for your questions. Okay, we have one more question from Matt. And the question is again for Jane. Is it highly probable that preservation of the ziggurat building will be required?
So GSA's position as it intending to put restrictions or a covenant or an easement is the term that we use for putting restrictions that require you to preserve the building into the future. Currently, that's GSA's position. We would like to see it be offered for public sale with a covenant, and then that would shift the responsibility to preservation to the new owner, and that new owner would then in turn have to work with a private nonprofit easement, a preservation easement holding organization in order to do future changes. So yes, it's our intent at this point that we will, the building will be preserved, and there will be restrictions put in place going forward. Now, we're not done with consultation yet, and things may change depending on what happens within consultation, what happens within the public sale, things like that. It's a little bit of a moving target now, but we do intend at this point in time to put the covenant in place. And I also want to say, if if you'd like to participate in the Section 106 consultation, you can send me a request, send it through Osman, and he'll get it to me, and I can add your name to the list to participate in the Section 106 consultation.
Yeah, and if you'd like to do so, I believe Jane's information is included on the project website, which I referred to earlier. And this, I should also mention, this presentation is now available on that website as well, or will be shortly. And thank you, Jane. Well, I will give it about 5 more minutes, and if there is no further questions, I will assume that all your questions have been answered, and we will end this public meeting. Again, I welcome your questions or comments on the final EIS, either emailed to me or mailed to the address provided. And I would like to thank all of you for attending. Again, I will mute myself for a couple minutes in case you are working on what you would like to ask or comment. But I would like to thank everybody for attending, and including my colleagues and fellow panelists. So I will put myself on mute, and you will not have to hear me speak for at least a couple minutes. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Matt, for giving us at least one more question. The question or comment is, it sounds like the GSA wishes to proceed with option 2. Doesn't that mean that abandoning the project is effectively no longer, or the project effectively no longer is an option? No, it doesn't. The desire to proceed with option 2 that you perceive is because option 2 has now been identified as the preferred alternative. Just because that is the case does not necessarily mean that either option 1 or the no action alternative cannot be selected.
It does look like we have one hand raise. This is from a caller, the number ending in 7933. Caller, we're going to unmute you here in a second, but please, for the record, state your name and your affiliation, and you are now free to talk. Caller, I believe you might still be muted. Caller ending in 7933, are you there? Caller, I'm sorry, don't seem to be able to hear you, but if you can hear us, encourage you to submit a comment through the means indicated on the notices or on the project website through gsa.gov/ChetH-NEPA.
And thank you. Or please feel free to raise your hand again if you are having trouble with your audio, and you can rectify that problem. In the meantime, we have another question from Terry Mount, and that is, if the building is preserved for demoed, will it be reconditioned, ACM retrofit, etc., as part of the preservation requirement? Sounds like this is another question for Jane. So Jane, if you wouldn't mind weighing in, thank you.
Sure, thanks for the question. So the idea is that GSA would, as part of its requirement under Section 106, insert or cause to be inserted a preservation easement. All future work on that property would be between the new owner and the easement holding organization. So it's not really going to be up to GSA to say what ultimately happens in the future, but our requirement is to make sure that there's somebody qualified reviewing the future work on the building for its historic preservation requirements. So I can't answer the question about will the retrofit be done or the asbestos be taken care of, because I don't know what the new owner of the property will be doing to it. So that's going to be between the new owner and any easement holding organization. I hope that answers the question. You can keep asking me if you have more questions.
All right, thank you, Jane.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like you have answered their question. So thank you. Okay, well, I will again give everybody a couple minutes to think of your questions. And once again, if you do not have any more, we will end the meeting in a few minutes. Thank you.
Looks like the previous caller is looking to raise their hand again, so I'm going to attempt to allow you to talk. Caller ending in 7933. Again, please state your name and affiliation for the record. And you are now free to talk, but it appears you're still muted.
Hello, this is Bob Bunyan, Orange County Historical Commission. Mike, I have two questions for you. One is ground contamination was a phase one study done for the property, and if so, was there any contamination detected? The second question is what communication you all have had with the surrounding cities, Aliso Viejo, Laguna Niguel, of course, and Laguna Hills. So those are my questions.
Okay. Jane, do you think you can speak to that question?
Well, I can't speak to the phase one question. I don't know. I don't have that record. So somebody else may be. And as far as the surrounding jurisdictions that we've spoken with, Laguna Niguel, the city of Laguna Niguel is in the Section 106 consultation meeting. They've been participating all along. We have not reached out to the other surrounding cities because this is within the city limits of Laguna Niguel. So that's the only one that we've reached out to as far as a local jurisdiction. I'm not sure who can answer the phase one question.
I can jump in here, Osman. There was a phase one environmental site assessment prepared for the project, and in terms of ground contamination that was identified, there was historically some tanks that were previously on the property many years ago that have since been remediated. And there were, I believe, some other concerns related to the past use of the site as a agricultural site prior to even construction. The findings of all of the phase one ESA are summarized in section, I believe it's 3.11 of the EIS. That's the hazardous materials and waste section. And that would be the best source for the comprehensive findings from the ESA. But I believe those are the two primary ones that I mentioned.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. And I hope we answered your questions. We have one more from Matt Shannon. What conceivably might cause GSA to abandon the project? That decision will be up to our regional commissioner and the commissioner of GSA. So I can't quite speak to what would cause them to abandon the project. But like I said, right now, the preferred alternative is alternative 2, which is disposal. But in whatever record of decision or notification of abandonment of the project, there will be some explanation as to the justification or reasons for abandoning the project.
And I apologize. I don't know if I lowered the hand for the caller user. So caller, I just wanted to just unmute you one more time and just make sure that you didn't have any additional questions or comments.
Hi, this is Bob Bunyan again, Orange County Historical Commission. Question, would the property be appraised and offered at an appraisal value, or would it be put out to competitive bid? That's my question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bunyan. And for that, I have to defer to my colleague Twee as to the process that the property might be put up for disposal through.
So the disposal will go to public sale. So yes, it will be open to the public for any interested buyers to submit bids. And we are currently going through the planning process right now. And if you're interested to receive further information on this public sale, please feel free to send your contact to us, and he can pass along to our team, and we can reach out to you or add you to a list of future information on the public sale.
Okay, thank you, Twee, and I hope that answers your question.
And it looks like caller has raised their hand again. So caller, I'm going to unmute you now. Or I'm sorry, you should still have the capability to unmute yourself.
This is Bob Bunyan again. I forgot to ask you my second question. Can you confirm this property is not in the California Coastal Commission boundary? Thank you.
I do not believe it is. I don't know offhand. I would have to refer to the EIS. Paul, do you know offhand?
Correct. It is not within the coastal zone.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, well, I will once again leave about 3 minutes on the clock, and if there are any further comments, I welcome those. Otherwise, I welcome you to submit your comments via email or mail to the addresses provided, and I would thank everyone for attending. So I will either hear from you within the next 3 minutes, or I will end this public meeting. Thank you.
Here's the caller. Bob has raised his hand again, so I will go ahead and allow you to talk now.
Oh, thank you. Last question. Do you know if the property, when the property was built, it, I believe it had a helipad and had gone through the licensing procedure. Do you know if the property still has that? And if so, would that be part and parcel of what would be offered in the sale package? Thank you.
You know, that is not a question I was prepared for, but Bob, if you wouldn't mind emailing me or calling me at the phone number that is provided, I would be happy to look up that information and provide that to you. I'm sorry, that was just not something I thought was going to come up today. Okay, we have reached a few minutes without a question or comment. So at this time, I will thank everybody from the public for attending, and my esteemed panelists for participating and attending as well. And I would just remind everyone that your comments are still